Hallelujah. Glory to God. Praise the Lord. So, this evening, what we're going to be talking about is adrenal fatigue. So, this is Cornerstone Health. This is section 2 of Cornerstone Health. And this is health formation and where we empower the mind to transform the body. I'm your servant, Brother Charles, master herbalist, health coach, etc., etc., etc. Now, before we get started, I always like to ask questions, because it kind of gives us a baseline of what it is we're to be looking for, and I like to provoke thought and things like that. So, I want to know, have you ever suffered from like unexplained hair loss, maybe a tendency to gain weight in the waist area and an inability to lose it? Like, where's this fat coming from? I only eat, bananas and eggplant. I don't know where this fat is coming from. What about dry and thin skin? What about alternating between constipation and diarrhea, which in the natural health field, they're the same thing, but just alternating between these things? Have you ever wondered why or where these things come from? We're going to talk about that and how it ties into adrenal fatigue. It's pretty interesting, the science behind that and what is going to be revealed this evening. Now, this is one of the most important parts about the slide that we're going to go over this evening, about this presentation, I'm sorry. Now, what we're going to look at is the fact that the body, particularly the nervous system, it has a two-part communication network that it uses, and that's the central and peripheral nervous systems, and we'll, focus particularly on the peripheral nervous system and how it houses the autonomic or automatic nervous system is what I like to call it, because your heart beats automatically, you breathe automatically, unless you're doing like some kind of controlled breathing. You digest food automatically, you sweat, you cry, etc. So this system is then divided into the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. Now, the sympathetic system, as you know, controls fight or flight or freeze or fold. This is how your body responds in an emergency, stressful situations, job stress, stress at the house, stress in marriage, even food that you eat that can cause stress. So whenever you do start to stress sympathetically, what will happen is the parasympathetic system will turn off. And it'll turn off so that you can operate in sympathetic mode at peak performance. And that's never really a good thing, because there are neuro and hormonal and chemical reactions that do take place. And initially, at its inception, it's not a bad thing, but a prolonged state is what causes the issues that we were talking about earlier on the graph that we showed in the previous slides. So let us continue. Now, what I want to show you here is sympathetic mode. So in this video, it's not funny at all. There's a gentleman, he's riding a bike, and he just so happens to see a bear charging him. And thankfully, he was on a bike, because the video would have ended really bad. But what we're going to go over is we're going to play the video, and then I want to tell you about some of the things that happen whenever you enter into sympathetic mode. And so what the different processes that your body goes through. So let's check this video out. Okay. So we see him getting on the bike. He's riding in the forest. It looks beautiful, sun up. And then he sees and hears the bear. You see how fast he starts going? So immediately what we notice here is his heart rate increases because he perceived danger. So here he goes. He's going fast. He's going to look back again to see where the bear is. Where's the bear? There you go. Okay, so now what's happening is his heart rate is increasing. Why is his heart rate increasing? Because there's a bear chasing him now. Because his brain has seen that there is an emergency. So his eyes are just sensors, And so that information was transferred to the brain. The brain is like, there's an emergency. So we have to, he's going to jump off. There we go. And run in the bushes. Man, look at that. Oh my goodness. Man, look at the bear. Look. Ooh. Ooh. Now, the only reason why the bear ran away was because there was a hunter who shot. If that hunter did not pull the trigger and shoot to distract the bear, he would have found the man. That is crazy. Now, what happened was his heart rate increased. And once your heart rate does increase, you start to sweat. Your pupils dilate. Why? So that you can breathe, you can bring in more light so you can see better. See what I'm saying? So whenever you uh, activate your sympathetic mode, your eyes, they get wide and you could see more. More light is coming in. So you can be able to see what you're fighting or what you have to run from. Now, in doing this, the digestion shuts down. Your reproductive system shuts down. So does your immunity. Your immunity shuts down as well. And even parts of the endocrine system. But they only shut down, or blood leaves those areas, then it goes to your hands, it goes to the muscles in your legs, it goes to your eyes, it goes to your heart in order to increase the heart rate. It does all of that just so you can be able to respond to the situation you're in. Now imagine just staying in a state like that all the time, where your heart is always racing. Where your brain will send a signal to your adrenal glands and have them to release these hormones that are involved with fight or flight all the time. You're going to have some issues. So even though it's needed, like we saw with him, it helped him get away from the bear. But to stay in that mode all the time is not a good thing. So let's go to the next slide and we'll see about the opposite, about the parasympathetic mode. So this right here, this is beautiful. So when you look at this is a beautiful beach, have the trees, have the water. You can hear the waves crashing against the sand. Beautiful sounds. It probably smells really good, not like it did in Cali. No offense to my Californians, that's where I'm from. But nonetheless, so this is what we would call parasympathetic mode. And it's nothing like the beautiful sounds and the vibe, if you will, that's coming from being in the place at La Playa or at the beach, where it's very comfortable, it's relaxing. There's no cars going by. You're not in the office, you're getting fresh air, you're in the sunlight, exposing yourself to, the benefits of the ultraviolet lights that's coming from the sun. Just all kind of benefits going on here. So this is what happens whenever you enter into parasympathetic mode. Fight or flight turns off. You're not running from nothing there except for the people who you ran from or the life that you ran from to get there to relax. But you're not running from anything, so fight or flight will turn off. Your heart rate will return to normal. Digestion can kick back on. And everything just goes back to normal. You can digest food again. Your immunity goes back on. So on and so forth. So even your endocrine system, parts of it turn back on. Now, why is this important? Because in a state of parasympathetic, your body is in homeostasis versus sympathetic. Everything is kind of off kilter a little bit just so that you can be able to deal with the stressful situation you may find yourself in, or you may be in a situation where you have to survive, like we saw the gentleman who was on the bike. Now, it's not a bad thing, but like I said before, in a prolonged state, it's not a good thing either, even though it can be useful for survival. Now, here we see the benefits of parasympathetic digestion. You can properly digest your food. Your heart rate, it returns to normal, so you're not dealing with the heart issues that are associated, like we talked about on that chart, palpitations or irregular heartbeats. So just something to think about as it pertains to the parasympathetic nervous system. So as we go on, we're going to learn a lot more about some of the causes, the different phases that adrenal fatigue occurs in, and what we can do about those phases if we should find ourselves in those phases. So let's continue. So adrenal fatigue. So there was a doctor, his name was Dr. James Wilson. In 2001, he wrote a book, and the book is titled Adrenal Fatigue, excuse me, 21st Century Stress Syndrome. And in this book, he stated 80% of Americans will at some time in their life experience adrenal fatigue. So that's some of the things: the hair loss, the pain in the neck and the shoulders, the inability to lose belly fat, dry and weak skin, so on and so forth. So adrenal fatigue is classified as the adrenal gland's inability to keep up with the stress and inflammatory demand put on it due to lifestyle factors, or a group of symptoms that occur in people who are under long-term mental, emotional, or physical stress. And I want to add to that too, spiritual stress as well. Now, what are the causes and the influences of this? Transgenerational epigenetic inheritance. And that's just a $2 word. And within that is two frameworks. So, transgenerational, meaning, what was passed down from your generation to the next generation to the next generation to the next generation. Epigenetics is pre-encoded genes that are in, let's say, my body, and lifestyle will, you know, cause those genes to be expressed. So they are lying dormant in me because what was passed on to me from my forefathers. However, they can be in me and lie dormant as long as no conditions are met to where those genes can be expressed. And then the inheritance is, what you inherit from your folks, from your people, from your ancestors. So, um, transgenerational epigenetic inheritance is one of the causes. Now, when you look at the style of life, it's diet, stress management, skin care, and oxygen intake. Now, diet, of course, we know is what we eat, when we eat, and how much we eat. When we look at stress management, how do you cope with stress? Have you ever been taught how to cope with stress? Do you do breathing exercises when you get upset? Do you walk away? Do you argue? Do you fight? Do you bicker? Do you gossip? How do you deal with your stress? Skin care. Do you take care of your skin? What do you put on your skin? What kind of chemicals do you use? Do you, go outside a lot and expose your skin to the benefits of the sunlight? And then oxygen intake. Are you actively doing breathing exercises? Do you sit down and take breaths? Knowing the benefits of what they do for your lungs, how they get rid of waste throughout the body. Do you do these things? Because all of these things affect adrenal fatigue, which is interesting. So, the nervous system, its main communicators are neurons and chemical messengers known as hormones. Now, hormones are carried in the bloodstream to specific areas of the body, including the body tissue. Some of these hormones uh, are, like I said, they're distributed throughout the body to different parts of the body, different tissues of the body, different areas, so on and so forth. Now, the thing about adrenal fatigue is all of the different endocrine glands that are affected by the adrenal glands. That's the pineal gland, the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, the thyroid, the ovaries, the testes. They're all affected whenever there is sympathetic stress. Now, being in this fight or flight mode too long, like I said before, it affects the amount of hormones that are produced. So too much or too little can lead to fatigue, because can lead to adrenal fatigue, and because of this, adrenal fatigue is going to impact all of those other glands as well and the things that they control. So overall, it's going to lead to illness and disease manifesting in many different ways. So what this is a gradual breakdown of the body. And some of the signs and symptoms of this adrenal fatigue is chronic fatigue. You're always tired. Depression. You're sad. Insomnia. You can't sleep. Joint pain. Low libido. You will not have a deep, refreshing, relaxing, restorative sleep. You'll feel overwhelmed. You'll have poor digestion. This is where that constipation comes in, or the diarrhea. You'll have a lack of stamina. You won't be able to concentrate. It'll be poor concentration. You'll have anxiety. You'll be irritable. You'll have poor memory. You'll be impatient. You'll be hungry a lot, or you won't have the desire to eat at all. And if you do have a desire to eat, you're going to crave salty foods. You're going to crave sweet foods. You're going to have panic attacks. Now, what I want to do now is we're going to look at the adrenal glands, and we're going to look at the structure and the function of it so we can get a better understanding why they're so important and why adrenal fatigue is um, why it's such a bad thing and ways that we can avoid it. Okay, so when you look at the human body, the adrenal glands, they are strategically centered on top of the kidneys. So these right here are the kidneys. This little bean shaped structure here. And right on top of this kidney, we have the adrenal gland. And that's on both of the kidneys. So this is a bigger picture here. You have the capsule, the outside part. You have the cortex here. And then you have the medulla. Now, the reason why this picture is important is because understanding the structure of the adrenal glands, where it's located and stuff, all of that stuff matters. Now, when you look at the medulla is responsible for the neurotransmitters, which are very important for nerve and brain function. So these neurotransmitters, they include epinephrine, adrenaline, norepinephrine, or dopamine, um, and also the whenever you do have the sympathetic reaction or the sympathetic response because you may be on your bike getting chased by a bear, who knows? What happens is your hypothalamus, remember it's an endocrine gland. So your hypothalamus will send a signal down the spinal cord to the um, to the adrenal gland, and what will happen is it will initiate the fight or flight response. And this it will tell the eyes to open, the lung airways to open, it'll tell the blood vessels to open up, it'll tell the digestive system to shut down, and it'll tell the reproductive system to shut down as well. So once the norepinephrine reaches the adrenal glands, adrenaline is released to maintain what the norepinephrine has started. So the norepinephrine is a neurotransmitter. That means that it uses the spinal cord or the nervous system to travel in order to get to the organ or the part of the body that it wants to interface with. Now the hormones, they use the bloodstream as their way of travel throughout the body. And so when you look at, norepinephrine and you look at adrenaline, they work on two different systems. One uses the nervous system, the other one uses the circulatory system. One starts the initial process and the other continues the process. So the way that norepinephrine works, it will bind to the organ using the nervous system, like we said, and it'll continually transmit this fight or flight message continually. And the adrenal glands, the hormones will continually tell the different organs to maintain the defensive posture. Stand the line, fight the battle, defend the kingdom. So that's what's going on. You're receiving a command, and the command is continually followed. So it's interesting that, the medulla and the cortex, even though, different things will come from them, that this is the way in which the body interacts whenever you find yourself in a stressful situation or environment. So the adrenal gland will use steroids as a response to inflammation in the body. Now, in order to make the steroids, and this is very important because this is where the liver and fat and belly fat comes in to play. It will use steroids initially to fight inflammation, but um, when you look at it, cholesterol is needed in order to make the steroids that the adrenal gland uses in order to deal with the inflammation that comes from stress. And of course, cholesterol is fat. Is made by the liver. Your liver makes 1,000 milligrams of fat a day. So when the kidneys don't have enough cholesterol, they won't be able to make enough steroids. And if you don't have enough steroids, then what your body will do is it'll look for another means to combat inflammation that's caused by stress. And the means or the substitute for steroids is fats. Your body will start to use lipids. Now, as we stated earlier, the medulla is where the neurotransmitters come from. Norepinephrine, epinephrine, adrenaline, so on and so forth. And the cortex is responsible for the corticoid type steroids that deal with inflammation, or the mineralocords that are responsible for maintaining the salt balance in the body. So let us continue on. So, real brief here, I just wanted to show you this picture. And this is what we were making reference to earlier in previous slides, talking about the particularly the neurotransmitters and the different parts of the body that it interfaces with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in so we can get a better uh, picture of this. Let me see. So here, when you're looking at the cranial nerves, this is the cervix spine right here, 1 through 7. And then right here, this is the thoracic spine or thoracic spine. And so you're looking at T1 through T12. You can see the different parts of the body that it interfaces with. So this is the eyes where T1 is, and the lungs where T1 is. So the airways will relax. So the way they can open up, they're not constricted anymore. The pupils or the eyes, they will dilate, so you're taking in more light. Also, you'll see salivation will stop. You're not salivating because you don't have a need to digest food. Look right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 4 through 7, T4 through 7. It inhibits the activity of the stomach. So this is the the neurotransmitter route and what's going on and how your brain is communicating with your organs by way of your nervous system. So this is the electrical signaling that's taking place. So it inhibits the activity of the stomach. Here, right here, and as it continues, it stimulates the release of glucose, inhibiting the gallbladder. So it shuts the gallbladder down, but it also releases stored sugar. Look, inhibits the activity of the intestines, so you're not going to be digesting food. The gallbladder, which breaks down fat, is shut off. It inhibits it, it stops working. And the other mechanism we use for digestion, the large intestine or the intestines, they're shut down as well. They are inhibited. Look, the secretion of epinephrine and norepinephrine, we talked about that. And what does it point to? The adrenal gland on top of the kidney. What does it do? Relaxes the bladder, promotes ejaculation, and vaginal contraction. So here, and this is why stress is not good for pregnant women, causing her to have contractions whenever there's a stressful situation going on. But also, when it's saying promoted ejaculation, it's saying I got to get rid of everything, and even relaxing the bladder, I got to get rid of everything so that I can get away. So I just wanted to bring this up real quick so we can see the different um, levels of communication that the brain is having with the body, and it's using the spinal cord to be able to do that, and the nerves that are on the thoracic spine. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so I did want to just show the liver. We're talking about adrenal fatigue, but the liver, as we saw in the picture before, it's affected by the adrenal fatigue as well, and not just that, by the sympathetic nervous system. So um, I'm not really going to go into detail about it. I did want to touch on one of the tasks of the liver and the gallbladder. So it converts. Get my highlighter. So what it does is it converts and it synthesizes and it biotransmutates and converts. So what does it do? It turns fats into glucose, like we talked about. It takes the ammonia from protein and turns it into urea. It synthesizes. So it uses cholesterol, not just for the membrane walls, but also for what? Steroid production and what? Anti-inflammatory responses. So the liver steps up whenever your adrenal glands get tired. They step up to the plate and they assist by utilizing lipids like we talked about before, using cholesterol. So what does that mean? You remember we talked about the inability to lose the fat around the waist, or how what'll happen is your liver is like, I'm going to keep producing cholesterol because the adrenal glands need it. And the adrenal glands is like, I'm done fighting. I did everything I could. Nothing is working. I'm tired. So the liver will start to use cholesterol to buffer some of the inflammation that's caused by being in sympathetic mode so long. So it's cool that your body, the way that it's designed, the liver is a substitute for the adrenal glands, but it does not do the adrenal gland's job the way that the adrenal gland can do its own job. The adrenal glands uses steroids, not fat. It uses cholesterol to make the steroids, but the adequate response to inflammation by way of the sympathetic nervous system is steroids. That's why when we go to the doctor, we have breakouts, or most of our inflammatory responses, we always have some kind of steroid. The doctors don't give us cholesterol. There's a reason for that. But the body will use cholesterol whenever the liver is tired. And there's a lot of complications that come with that. So we're going to go to the next slide and we're going to visit some of these things. Okay, so what we're going to look at now is the different phases of adrenal fatigue. And what happens during those phases, what are some of the symptoms during those phases, and then what are the remedies during those phases. So let's look at the alarm phase first. So now, in this phase, the adrenal glands increase the amount of hormone secretion to maintain the normal functionings of the body. Now, when the sympathetic nervous system kicks on, the parasympathetic nervous system will turn off. Like I said before, it shuts off digestion, your sex organs, your urinary tract, and less energy is being sent to these systems so that your body can use the rest of the energy to deal with the crisis at hand. Now, this means that blood is limited in areas where it's not needed, to the skin, the feet, the digestive tract, and also to the brain as well. So when you look at it, some of the symptoms that occur during this alarm phase can be raised and knotted shoulders, a tight upper back and neck, like we talked about, chills along the spine, clammy hands, cold feet, your heart rate can increase, you have a tight locked pelvis and tight leg muscles. So these are some of the symptoms that are present in this phase. Now, in this phase, it's a lot easier to go back to parasympathetic mode because you're just in the first phase. And as long as you don't, like we talked about, if you don't stay in the state a long period of time, it's not unhealthy. You're just in and out, just in and out. Now, what the body does is the body will mobilize itself by bringing in large amounts of glucose and oxygen to the organs to ward off danger. Now, the non-essential parasympathetic functions like digestion and urinary and reproductive systems are inhibited, like we said earlier. Adrenal corticoid secretion rises sharply, raising blood pressure and producing symptoms of parasympathetic hyperactivity. And those are some of the symptoms that we went over. Now that we know what the alarm phase is and some of the symptoms are being in the alarm phase, now we're going to talk about what you can do about it if you find yourself in that phase, okay? Okay, so these are some of the treatments that you can use if you, like I said, if you find yourself in the alarm phase. So let's go over them. B vitamins, they help the body deal with stress for longer periods of time. They can help with muscle cramping, depression, and certain B vitamins like B5 is really good for your adrenal function. Magnesium, we know that that is a muscle relaxer. It helps the body to relax, especially if you're experiencing the cramps we talked about from stress. And because magnesium relaxes the muscle, it can be helpful for stress induced anxiety or asthma attacks and for lowering blood pressure. Really good. Electrolytes. After a stressful event or exercise, electrolytes like sodium and potassium can be lowered as well, and these are necessary to maintain the fluid balance in the tissues and regulating transport along the cell wall. So when you look at it, when it comes to your mentality, cramps, muscles, so on and so forth, electrolytes are extremely important because you want to keep your body hydrated. So in this phase, you can make sure that you're hydrated. Particularly, you can use sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, those different things to maintain hydration during that time. Next is vitamin C. Now, whenever your ACTH, and that's the adrenal corticotropic hormone, another $2 word, is produced from the adrenal glands, it causes you to lose absorbic acid. So you need vitamin C to replace that, and that's the best thing to do to replace it. Coffee consumption. If you're already in a stressful environment, you don't need to add coffee. So limit the amount of coffee you take while you're in this phase, or just eliminate it at all. Drinking water. I said that already. Stay hydrated. It's important to replenish the sodium and the potassium that's lost due to those steroids being produced, and not just the steroids, but the hormones that are produced by the adrenal cortex in order to deal with the stress. Meditation. This is a tool. Now, I did want to say this from a spiritual perspective. Meditation is being used in a lot of different ancient cultures, and it wasn't just a way of you trying to ascertain some higher state. It was used for many different things. Now, one of the things that we want to use it for now is to center and calm ourselves. You can use a scripture, you could a passage or a song about Jesus. You can use these things in order to help to um, deal with the alarm phase. So you can meditate. The Bible says, meditate on, the Bible said, think on these things, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are good, whatever things are just, whatever's of good report, think on these things, and the God of peace will be with you. He told Joshua, he said, meditate on my word day and night, that you will make your way prosperous and you will have good success. The Bible said good success. So meditation, it has a lot of benefits. Use the tool. It's a tool that's been made available to you, so use it. The other thing is the Rhodelia rose root. Uh, and of course, I spell root wrong, so forgive me. I put route. It supports the functions of the adrenal glands and help you to have a healthier response physically, emotionally, and a mental stress levels will be different because this will help to normalize the cortisol levels and other stress-related hormones. So this root acts as a normalizer. So what it'll do is it'll stabilize your hormone levels. So we're going to go to the next slide. Okay, so the next phase is the resistance phase. Now, this phase is when traumatic situations causing elevated functions of the adrenal glands. This elevated activity, once it is prolonged, it will overwork the adrenal glands, and they will become exhausted and will not be able to release adequate amounts of hormones such as cortisol and epinephrine. And we talked about why, those things are important. Constant stress leaves the body depleted, which leads to a decrease in overall immunity and then an increase in inflammation and pain. Now, like we talked about, whenever the sympathetic system is activated, digestion turns off. And what will happen is undigested food begins to enter the colon, causing bloating. Also, the body can no longer pull the nutrients out of the food that is in your stomach. So this could lead to malnutrition. Now, did you know that the parasympathetic nervous system will even try to take over if you stay in this state too long? It's like, let me step in the same way the liver will step in, the parasympathetic nervous system will step in too. Now, when it does step in, there's a constriction of the blood vessels. And so what will happen is your parasympathetic system will be like, okay, let me take energy flow from the blood vessels that are in the brain so that I can help. The excitement of the digestive system and adrenal gland deficiency is some of the things that the parasympathetic nervous system will do if it has to take place if you're in this resistant phase, and pretty much if the adrenal glands are like, I need help, help me, then your body will come to the rescue. So let's look at some of the remedies for those of us who may be in a resistance phase. Okay, so let's go over some of the treatments for this phase. Now, holy basil, I did a lot of research on this. Holy basil does so much for the body. Okay, so it nourishes the mind and elevates the spirit. It contains a variety of constituents that function collectively to normalize stress hormones, enhance adrenal function. These include eugenol, camphor, caryophyllene, uracilic acid, epigenetic, so on and so forth. So eugenol is anti-inflammatory, it's an analgesic, and it has antimicrobial effects. Camphor reduces inflammation. Um, it's a remedy for arthritis, good for skin care, improves reproductive performance. It's anti-spasmodic. So it does a lot for the body. Next is ashwagandha. So it supports mental, physical stamina of the body and improves immunity by helping the body be able to adapt to stress. Schisandra berries helps with overall health and immunity and vitality. So it helps with frequent urination and diarrhea because it's astringent, so it tonifies the organs. And then the other treatment for this would be a relaxation technique. That's meditation, that's deep breathing, that's long hot baths, that's massage therapy. There's such a thing called Christian yoga. There's journaling. Just something that you can do frequently that you enjoy doing, that you have fun, but that's relaxing, you know. So those are some of the treatments for this phase. Now let us continue. Okay, so let's continue with the treatments for this second part. So avoid sodium. Avoid if your blood pressure is high, of course, if you have that as a symptom. Cut the coffee out completely. Just cut it out because it stimulates the adrenal glands. So, if your adrenal glands are already they're overworked and they're tired, you don't want to keep drinking coffee to continue to stimulate them. It's going to make them wear out faster. Cut out the smoking. If you do smoke, then, you need to have, remember we talked earlier about how air intake is important and how that affects the adrenal fatigue. So you want to make sure that you have clean air. Smoking is just not going to give you what you need, so there's no point in doing it. So you can cut that out. Lower the amount of sugar you're taking in because remember, digestion shuts off. And what I found out is that anytime you're in calm down. Anytime you're in sympathetic mode, what happens is the body will talk with the pancreas, specifically the B cells, and it will stop them from doing their job. So sugar won't be able to get in and out of the body or in and out of the cells. So it'll stop insulin from working. Interesting. One of those things as it pertains to digestion. Ginger, in case you feel cold, because remember, blood is going to leave your hands, clammy hands. In case you feel cold, ginger it has a very thermogenic effect, warming the body. Bitters are always the bomb because they do help with digestion and elimination. So if you do have a problem or did develop a problem because of too much stress, you can use bitters to help to restore yourself. And overstimulation, just try to avoid stuff that's going to overstimulate you. You know what triggers you. You know what's going to cause you to be overstimulated. Even the people, yes, I would say definitely avoid the people. You can confront them and let them know that you're no longer going to be dealing with them because they're just, you cannot afford at this particular point to allow them to continue to stress you out. So avoid being overstimulated. Now let's continue. Okay, so this is the final stage here, and this is the exhaustion stage. Now, this stage occurs only when stress is extremely severe and when it continues over a long period of time. At this level, cortisol secretions increase above normal rate, causing the body not to be able to successfully cope with the stressors or with the things that's causing you to stress. Now, there are people who have, when they were little, they went through stress for a long time. It was mental, it was emotional, it was verbal. Sometimes it was physical abuse for a long time. And so when you look at it, you were in this stress for an extremely long time. And you're only 12 years old. Can you be suffering from adrenal fatigue? Some of the symptoms in this stage is arthritis, arteriosclerosis, nephrosclerosis, gastrointestinal ulcers, hypertension, so on and so forth. Your muscles begin to waste. Your immune system is all the way suppressed. Your beta cells are suppressed. So they're not storing and releasing insulin anymore. That sounds like adrenal diabetes. Cushing's syndrome could occur during this exhaustion stage. We wasn't designed for long-term stress. So now we're going to talk about some of the remedies that we can utilize to help us to exit this stage. Okay, so we have the Adrenal 6 formula, and the Adrenal 6 formula has Romania, Holin, Alisma, Cornus, Dioscorea, Montane, and Lycium fruit. So the benefits are listed there. The Romania strengthens the kidneys. The Holin is good for edema, emotional stability, and it calms the mind. Alisma brings down inflammation of the kidneys. Corneus tonifies the kidneys and strengthens the lower back and the limbs. Dioscorea helps to balance the hormones and steroid production. Mountain activates blood circulation and acts as an anti-inflammatory. And the lycium fruit helps to strengthen the kidney, nourishing the blood. So this is a very, very old formula. It's because the Bible says it's nothing new under the sun. That's absolutely true. So this formula comes from traditional Chinese medicine, and it's extremely beneficial for adrenal fatigue. Now there's two levels of it. It's adrenal 6 and adrenal 8. Both of those combat adrenal fatigue. So if somebody is in a later stage, or if they're more further along, like in a stage of 10, I mean not 10, but like 20, 30 years of stress, then we would use adrenal 8. It has all of the same stuff, just two extra added ingredients or herbs. Now with the adrenal 6 formula, the way that you would take it is you would take it in tea form. You would do 5 times a day, and you'll do it for 5 to 6 months. So it'll have time to get in your system, and it's going to begin to tonify the kidneys, repair the kidneys, which will in turn benefit the adrenal glands. So this is primarily the benefit outside of everything else we said. So you can do the tea, you can do the meditation, you can do the stretching, you can do the deep breathing, and all of these things, most of them, the deep breathing is free. The stretching is free. The exercise is free. The tea isn't, but it can be used in conjunction with these other tools that you have. So I would say get the tea, do the breathing exercises, so then that way you can bring your adrenal glands back online, And that will in turn help with the adrenal fatigue, and it'll help with your ability to lose the stubborn belly fat, and it'll help with your midday mental fog. It will help with your being tired all the time, with your hair loss, with your weak skin. It'll help with these different things that we talked about at the beginning. And this here is just some additional information. So the adrenal glands respond to stress by secreting aldosterone. This is another one of the things that the kidney will secrete anytime sympathetic nervous system is triggered. Aldosterone, which tells the kidneys it needs to retain more sodium and copper. Now, this provides a quick energy supply, but it also tells the kidneys to eliminate a large amount of zinc and magnesium. So if zinc and magnesium is eliminated, that means that the stuff that we need in order to build the body to digest food is being removed, and the stuff that we need to relax is being removed. So zinc and magnesium are eliminated due to aldosterone's call, or the body's call for it during a stressful situation. And this hinders our ability to digest food. This is why it's turned off. To assimilate nutrients and to produce energy from fruit becomes greatly impaired because zinc is necessary for the production of proteins in the body and in the stomach, and it even works with the pancreas and the intestines to break food down into the simplest form to be absorbed through the intestinal lining. Constant fight or flight equals constant removal of minerals in the body. Copper and sodium, as they increase, they create a lot of issues for the body. Copper itself is very stimulating and agitating to the nervous system and can make you over emotional, and this is important, make you overreact, give you an inability to relax, excessive worrying, excessive thinking, difficulty sleeping, which leads to you being more stressed out. Just additional info, like I said. So we're going to go to the next slide. So this here is just, again, this is additional information. So steroid production, we already talked about what the adrenal glands do. They produce steroids in an initial response to inflammation, which is caused by the sympathetic nervous system being triggered on, or even by what you eat sometimes. Next is the electrolyte and fluid retention. So what your body will do is, as a defense, it will retain fluids. And this is where edema comes in. So the adrenal glands have gotten wore out. The body will use water and electrolytes to deal with the hellfire, or the acid that is from the foods that you eat, that it forms whenever it leaves a ash on top of the cell. And so this is where stone formations in the kidneys come from. This is where liver issues come from. This is where joint issues come from. This is where muscle altering blood pressure comes from. This is where dehydration comes from. The next one is cholesterol plaquing. The liver will begin to produce excessive amounts of cholesterol, like we talked about, to supply the adrenal glands with more steroids. This will start to build up in the lining of the vascular system and throughout other tissues of the body as an attempt to create plaquing, to create a plaque shield. So again, it's not that your body is attacking you, it's defending against the attack. So far, steroid production, electrolyte and fluid retention, what we would call edema, and next it was cholesterol plaquing. Now let's look at the last one, calcium extraction. The body will begin to pull out calcium from the bone matrix and utilize it as a shield to further protect the body. Now, an early onset of bone issues is what will occur. That's osteoporosis, thyroid issues, blood pressure issues, heart issues, weak skin, connective tissues, muscle cramping, prolapsed organs, bone spurs, stone formation, stenosis issues, and hot flashes. Let's go to the next slide. So this acid food chart just pretty much goes over the different types of food groups, and then it tells you what foods are more acidic and what foods are less acidic.
And so with that in mind, at least we will have something that we can utilize as a tool to be able to help us to be able to not only identify what's more acidic and what's lowest on the acid chain, but also what it is that we can utilize to help our bodies. So that's what this chart is for, to be able to point us in a direction of what we can eat and what we can't eat. So it's going to serve as a guide for us. So this here is our alkaline food chart. And what it just shows is foods that's lowest on the alkaline level to foods that's more alkaline or most alkaline. And this is important because we'll have a basis in order to be able to govern ourselves essentially. So we'll have a format that we can look at. And there's more foods, of course, but we'll have a format that we can look at, and also we'll be able to decipher for ourselves what's good for us and what's not good for us. So this is a very efficient and effective tool.